Bore da, croeso. I'm gonna share my presentation. With me. So, I'm Mike Mainwaring, and I'm a senior training officer in Children in Wales. And welcome to this webinar. Nice to see some familiar faces. And nice to meet those of you I don't know. I think most of you I probably do know at some point. So yeah, so what we've got is this is the last in a series of 3 webinars we've been running. And what's happened is that we got some money from Welsh Government to put these webinars together, but also to create some workshops for workers to use with young people. So all of that's been happening. We have some partners. We have 5 partners who Gareth Hicks, who's the Young Wales Development Officer, he's been working with them. And so those workshops are there to do direct work with specific groups, so LGBT, young deaf children, BAME communities, and so on. So they should be happening over the next couple of weeks, in line with the deadline for young voters to register. And we did a residential on the weekend, and Gareth did some filming with some people who'd all just voted last year for the first time in the Senedd, and some young people who were looking forward to voting for the first time in, well, just over a month now, really. So yeah, so so what we've done is Ella from the Electoral Commission is going to talk to you about all the resources they've got. I'm going to show you what our workshop looks like so far, and if anybody wants that, that's fine. What we've done is, because there was additional support needed for those specific groups, that's what Gareth's been focusing on. We can send you out the presentation. What we can't do is we can't support you beyond that. In terms of running it, it would be a case of you running it yourselves. Okay, and if there's any questions, just ask. Yeah, Louise will keep an eye on the chat, but if you just want to talk to us like normal human beings do, that's marvelous as well. Yeah, so I've got, just because this is just a signal, I think, a signifier. I'm actually getting in my car on Thursday, and I'm driving to Abergavenny, and I'm presenting training in front of human beings who will not be hiding behind screens. How phenomenal is that? And I'm going to meet a friend for a glass of wine afterwards and be very civil about it and everything. So, without ado, bear with me. So yeah, as I said, you know, keep your microphones off for the minute, but if you want to talk to me, great. It is being recorded, and if anybody wants a copy, just let Louise know. And yeah, you can put questions in chat, and I'm going to pass you over to Ella. So I'll stop sharing, Ella. Bear with me, and it's over to your good self.
Okay, thank you. I will just share my screen. Can everyone see that? So I'm just going to just go with yes, unless I hear different.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so morning everyone. My name's Ella, and I'm the comms officer at the Electoral Commission in Wales. So what I'm going to do today is just go through quickly a little bit about ourselves at the Commission and what we do, and then I'm going to show you some resources that we've created that might be useful for you when you're working with young people ahead of the election. So in terms of who we are at the Commission and what we do, so we have a couple of different functions. We are an independent organisation, so we're not kind of affiliated with any political party. We're accountable to the parliaments in each of the 4 nations of the UK rather than the governments. And we're a regulator, so we regulate political finance in the UK, and we also provide a lot of guidance and support to local authorities to help them run elections. But the area that I think is most relevant to this presentation today is we do a lot of public awareness work to make sure that everyone, particularly newly enfranchised people and groups that might be less likely to be registered and to vote, know what they need to do to be able to get involved in elections and participate with confidence. So as part of that, over the last kind of 18 months since the franchise was extended to young people in Wales, we've been working on kind of education work. It's sort of a new area for us. So what we've done is we've created some education resources for young people and for educators in Wales. We've also been doing a bit of teacher training to help teachers and educators sort of understand how to use the resources and get the most out of them. And we've also been working with a partner in Wales to do some sort of youth voice work with us. So the partner is the Democracy Box. Some of you might have come across them in this work, but we've been working with young people involved on that project to make sure that our education resources are kind of fit for purpose and they are engaging for young people. So we really want to make sure we get that right. So yeah, overall, we're sometimes referred to in the media as the elections watchdog. So I think that probably sums up best what we do. But what I'm going to focus on today is just talking you through some of the resources we've created. So we've worked on kind of three main things. So we have lesson plans. So these are we've got 6 lesson plans. They're an hour long each, and these are quite detailed sort of resources. So this is the one on the left of the screen that says Your Vote. So these resources, the lesson plans are probably better for use in school settings, but they might be useful for some of the work that you're doing if you've got a group that's quite engaged and quite interested. The other resources we have are short activities. So this is the one at the bottom that says the Ideal Parliament. And these are the ones we're going to focus on today because they're all really short. They're probably good to use in groups of different ages and abilities and more informal settings where you might not have as much kind of time to go into the topic in detail. And we also have promotional resources. So the one at the top, we've got like posters and social media assets that you can use, and they're all available to download on our website. And all of this is also available in Welsh as well. So just to let you know that. Before I go into the resources, I just want to flag something that we've picked up on as we've been working on kind of political literacy and democratic education. It's just that politics can be difficult to talk about, and I think sometimes it's a bit daunting to try and teach it as well, because it's a topic that can get heated, or people feel like they can't have their say because they're worried about what people are going to think of their opinions. So something we suggest is, before you kind of going into a session with a group, is to maybe think about setting some ground rules. So we've got some examples on the left of the screen there, but obviously you could just come up with your own rules within the group that you're working with. And we also have this slide as well to kind of show that you could like give people roles in the group. So, you know, if you're trying to kind of debate a subject, you could say, okay, you're going to be the advocate for this, you're going to be devil's advocate, I'm going to be objective, or I'm going to be impartial. And it's just a way to try and I guess like enforce those rules a little bit and make them clearer for the young people. So I just wanted to flag that at the start before I go into the resources. So this, just like I said, I'm going to show you a couple of the quick activities that we've got. There are a few more than the ones I'm going to show you today, but this is just an example. So you might want to start with something like this. So you could do this in person or virtual. If you're doing it in person, you could physically get the young people to stand on different sides of the room. If you're doing it on Zoom, you could get them to write in the chat on a scale of 1 to 5 or something like that. There's some statements here. You could come up with your own statements, but the idea is to just gauge the temperature of the group in terms of their interest in this topic, what they think and feel about it, to try and just generate a bit of discussion before kind of going into more of the details. So that's a good starter activity. And then following on from that one, we've got this one. So if you are in a group where maybe they don't feel like they can see how politics affects their life or what it has to do with them, this is quite a good activity to try and illustrate that. So getting the group to write down their like timeline of their day and showing how their day is impacted by politics in different ways. So there's some examples on the right there, but that's quite a good one to follow on with. We do have a video. I'm not going to show it now because it's a little bit long, but we have some videos on our website, so they're quite good to kind of pause and like give some information without it being too overwhelming, because they're quite short and they just give a bit of an overview of like the different types of elections and the different things that young people can vote in. So you might want to show one of them. This activity just tries to illustrate the differences between what the Senedd, the UK Parliament and your council controls. So again, you can gauge the temperature of the group. Like if you think some of them might have an idea who does what, you could use this. If you think that they might not have a clue, then that's okay as well. I could just show the video, maybe skip past this. But yeah, we've got the answers on the next slide. So there's sort of options here depending on the group that you're working with, I guess. New vocab, so just good to just pause at kind of, if you have given them quite a lot of information, I think it's always good to pause and reflect on like new words or new phrases that they might not be familiar with. And then I think probably what I would do is kind of do some of those activities to warm them up a little bit and get them talking. And maybe once you've done that, think about talking about the elections that are coming up and the fact that 16, 17-year-olds can vote in them. But I think it's good to kind of lead into that rather than start with that, because I think if you start with it straight away, there's always kind of those questions of, well, I don't know how it impacts me and I don't know why it's important and I don't care about it. So I think it's good to try and have some discussion to lead into that. But as you know, there are elections coming up on the 5th of May and these are for local councils. So I would definitely spend a bit of time trying to explain to the group, you know, what your local council does and what areas they're responsible for. You might spend some time with the group asking them to look up who their current councillors are. You might ask them, does anyone know who their councillors are? You can do that online really easily. And I've got a link at the end. So yeah, that's something you could do. And an activity that could go with that would be this one. So thinking about, you know, who's your ideal representative? What kind of background should they have? What experiences should they have? Again, trying to like generate some discussion with the group. And then registering to vote. So I won't spend too long on this because I know that Mike's going to talk about it in a bit more detail. But obviously, yeah, if you want to vote in elections, you must be registered. In Wales, you can register when you're 14, but you can only start voting when you're 16. They won't need to register before every election, just if they've never registered before, or if they've recently moved house or changed their name. You do need a national insurance number. Well, you'll be asked for a national insurance number to register to vote. If you don't have one, that's okay. You can still register. If you don't have one because you're not 16 yet, then that's fine. You'll be matched using local kind of education data. If you're over 16, so maybe you're care experienced or you've never had a national insurance number, you never got one or you've lost it, that's okay. You can still register. What will happen is once you register, the electoral services team at the local council will get back in contact with you to ask you to supply some different kind of identification. So it could be like birth certificate, passport, driving license. There's lots of things. Even if you don't have any of those, you should still be able to register. So I just wanted to take a second to explain that. And we do have a list of all the documents that you can use, so I can share a link to that as well in the chat. And just to flag that the deadline is the 14th of April, so everyone must be registered by then to vote at the elections on the 5th of May. And I think that's pretty much it from me. There's some info on this slide about everything I've been through. So all the activities that I've shown you and everything else is on our website. It's just electoralcommission.org/learning. We also have lots of other information on there about kind of how to find your polling station, how to register to vote by, how to vote by post, how to vote by proxy, all that sort of stuff. The Register to Vote portal is on there. The Democracy Box, the project I mentioned at the start, that's their website. I'd really recommend having a look at them. They've got loads of activities, sort of resources, sorry, for young people, like really interesting things like raps and YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff. There's a link to find your MP or your councillors there, and my email address is there if anyone wants to get in touch with me. But yeah, that's it from me. So happy to take any questions now or at the end, or I'll just stop sharing. Cool.
Thanks, Ella. That was really, really helpful. Anybody got any questions for Ella? Louise has put in the chat that she'll share the link to Ella's slides. She can share the link to my slides as well. And what I'll do is I'll forward on to Louise some of the lesson plan and some of the activities that are in there as well. Anything for Ella? I mean, I think it's a time, Ella, where, you know, only us in Scotland have this ability to, that 16, 17-year-olds are able to vote, which is quite amazing and fits in with the overall approach to children's rights in Wales as well, which I think we should be very proud of, really. But it's getting the numbers out, and as I said, I spent the weekend with some young people who were highly politicized, probably because they're the kind of young people who want to get involved in Young Wales, which is the part of Children in Wales that engages with government. But interesting to see, young people who are actually invigorated by politics and want to engage, and now have the ability to actually show what they think about when it comes to local politics and politics more widely. So yeah, the more we can get 16, 17-year-olds to actually vote, the better. And as we can see what's going on in Ukraine at the minute, we've got people who are fighting for the basic rights to be able to voice what they think needs to happen in their own country. So yeah, it's very much on the agenda.
Yeah, something I forgot to mention actually, which I mentioned last time, which might be of interest to people, is the Welsh Government has provided funding to local authorities for them to have a person in their electoral services team who's responsible for registration and engagement with their local community. So they're doing lots of work at local authority level in terms of trying to engage with young people and other under-registered groups. And there is like a go-to person there whose job it is to do that, basically. So I would definitely recommend, if you are doing some work, trying to make links with that person in your local authority, because they can also help if you do have any tricky questions in terms of, you might have a young person who doesn't have a national insurance number or something like that, where registration for them is not straightforward. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting in touch with your electoral services team, because they can help with all that sort of stuff, and I can always put you in touch with the direct person as well if you'd like me to. So yeah, I just want to flag that. To say that.
Fantastic, thanks, Ella. Anything else before we move on? No. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what we did to get to this point, really, with the workshop. So Gareth and I put together this workshop, and we took it to a couple of young people who had been involved in encouraging 16, 17-year-olds to vote in the Senedd elections. So they were well versed in what that meant in terms of encouraging people to register and to actually vote. What was interesting is that, which mirrors all the research as well, is that it's issues that young people are involved in, not necessarily political parties. So they might see, like, well, who cares who our local councillor is? Does it make any difference to us? And and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, the media line is that politicians are corrupt and so on and so forth. But yeah, it was the kind of issue-based approach that made sense to them. So what we did then was we changed the workshop based on what they told us. We also took it to the providers, who are our partners, who are going to deliver the workshops to young people, and we changed the workshop based on their needs as well. So we've got it. It's in the process of being translated into BSL and into Welsh. So yeah, so we're hoping all that translation will be done by the end of the week, and then all of that can go out. And as I said, some young people were filmed on the weekend to give their opinions. because you know it's much more powerful watching a young person talk about why they voted rather than an old man like me harping on about it. So I'll just show you what some of the content of that, and I'm going to show you the process of how young people register, because it is, you know, everybody always says like, oh, it'll take you 5 minutes. I mean, this is literally 5 minutes. It doesn't take long at all. So the overall aim is about engaging with young people who are eligible to vote. And this is a listening game. It's very difficult to play it online unless I put you all into breakout rooms, which I can't. So yeah, it's a little game about young people realizing the importance about listening and what happens when you're excluded, when you're ignored, and so on. So it's very much built into the kind of democratic process about voice, about having your voice heard. And yeah, so these are the dates. So the 5th of May is the actual election of local councillors, and the deadline for voting is the 14th of April. So this is a bit about like who's eligible, who can vote. So you need to be registered and be 16 or over on the day of the election. And yeah, we'll look at the address bit in a minute, and not be legally excluded from voting.
Sorry to cut in, Mike.
Oh, am I not sharing?
You're not sharing, no.
Oh, do you know, it's such a schoolboy error for a trainer, and it happens all the time. Thanks, Lou. Yeah, so in terms of who can vote, yes, British citizens, Irish EU citizens, and Commonwealth citizens, or from another country, and I'll show you how that works in practice. Again, it's quite straightforward. So following on what Ella was saying, so it's a bit about what the young people said was, look, you know, we need to know, yes, what local elections, local councillors can make decisions on, but it needs to be visual as well. So what this game would entail is having visual resources that young people would pick up and say to them, you know, could pick up 3 that you think are really important to you, and then tell us about why they're important to you. For instance, you know, there's only buses at certain times. If I miss one, then I'm stuck miles away from home, or whatever the issue is. So you're trying to locate the issues very much within the young person's experience. So it also covers things like housing, where housing is built. Social services may affect some of the young people, either because they are in care, or they may be caring for someone else. They might be a young carer, or they might have a disability. Highways, waste, you know, where they can do culture and leisure activities, and things like, you know, trading standards. Who do they complain to if they've had a rough deal in a shop? You know, things like taxi licensing, yeah, things like environmental health. Planning, economic development, and things like emergency planning, which, you know, was obviously quite on people's minds after what happened during the lockdown. It was local authorities who were coordinating a lot of those services locally, and it could be things like flooding. Flooding obviously is another topical issue, plus planning for terrorism. So then a bit about what they can do for them. You know, what councillors are. You know, they're elected for 4 years. What wards are, and yeah, what we purposefully stayed clear of. This is about getting young people registered so they can vote in the local council elections on the 5th of May. we didn't go into like town councillors, community councillors, how local government works in terms of a cabinet and elected members. And we stay clear of all of that stuff because we thought that's probably one, too much for an hour workshop, and two, probably was confusing matters. We were trying to keep it as simple as possible. You know, this is about sign up for voting, and in the next election you can do this. Clearly more work needs to be done on what does it mean to vote, you know, what the political parties saying, what are manifestos and all the rest of it. But that was outside of the remit of this particular piece of work. And again, something Ella touched upon, you know, does anyone know who their local councillor is? You know, what they're actually able to do, you know, they're making decisions about where money is spent, decisions about council tax. Council tax is going to be, you know, more pertinent as we go forward because of the cost of living increase, and council tax is being frozen so that there's more money in people's pockets, for instance. How that affects young people who are in care or leaving care. And then kind of what they can do, you know, the fact they're the person you can ring up and talk to and raise issues with, and the fact you can go and sit in meetings if you want to. You know, you can sit in the public gallery and listen to what councillors are deciding upon. As said, Gareth filmed quite a few young people on the weekend. So at this point in the training, those films could be shown to young people, and they were from quite a diverse background as well. Because obviously what we'll try and do is make sure that young people across Wales, whatever background they come from, are engaged in the whole process. And in reality, you know, for those young people, it'll really affect their lives. And that's the QR code that takes you directly to the gov.uk page, which I'm going to show you now. Bear with me. Any questions so far before I show you this? So you froze them for a minute. I was a panic, thought I'd lost you all completely. All right, so let's share this. So this is the actual website, and it really is dead straightforward. Those of you working with young people around housing benefit and benefits will realise this is simple. So what we thought was the best way to do this is actually show young people what to expect. We did toy with having like kind of sheets on explanations, but actually it's all in here. And also what the worker, I'll show you how we can do it so that the worker can fill it in. Obviously, if you wanted young people to register, then they could, but you just got to be careful about confidentiality because they put their addresses in and those kind of things. Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about Wales. Yeah, I'm British, or if you say citizen of another country, just ask you where that other country is. Yeah, likewise, you can click Irish. So British, yeah, continue. So you'll see that I'm an old man now. I've just turned 51, and it's great. I can assure you. So Children in Wales, obviously you can put your own organisation in there. No, I haven't changed my name. So made up a national insurance number, it's vaguely relates to mine. If you want to contribute to my pension, then please feel free. So it's found an address. For some reason it's not our address in Windsor Place, but hopefully this person won't get junk mail. So no, don't live at a second address, otherwise yes. Yes, time living at 2 homes, or yes, I'm a student. Obviously, some students live away. No, I haven't moved in the last 12 months. Right, now for someone like me, this is really important. So you have what is called the full register and you have the open register. So the full register means that you can vote. It also means that you can have credit checks and those kind of things. And that's fine. That's called the full list. The open register means that the local authority can sell it on, your details on, and that's where you will get people contacting you about, I don't know, double glazing or whatever it is. Yes, and you know what one of the young people says, by the time she got to this, she didn't care about whether it was open or full, but it's a conversation you need to have because it's about privacy, really. So no, I don't want to be on the list, thank you very much. Again, it's like, do they want to vote in person? Do they want a postal vote? As long as a postal vote is there by the 5th of May, then that counts. I prefer to walk down the road and go to the school and do it, so no, I prefer to do it in person. It's my telephone number. Children Wales' telephone number. Yes, they can contact me at Children Wales. Children Wales, marvellous. And there we are, there's all the information in there. If I submitted this, I'd be committing fraud because it's actually made up, but I'm not going to submit it. And then that's it. And as I said, if when it comes to the national insurance number, if you haven't got one, you just say, yeah. If you want to sit with a young person on the phone and ring for a national insurance number, I've had mixed reviews. I did it and it lasted about half an hour and it was done. I've known others who've been on the phone for hours. So, but this way, at least they'll be able to vote. And that's it on that front. Yeah, and share this. Yeah, so I put that in because Lou would kill me if I forget again to say about evaluations. But are there any questions before we do that? Someone's got their hand up somewhere.
Hi, yeah, it's me, Lucy here.
Hello.
Hi. I just had a bit of a question about something we've seen with adults around the new voting entitlements for people with different migration statuses.
Yeah.
We've seen quite a lot of confusion with the voter registration site, that when you go on it, it says to vote, and the first bullet point is you must be a British or Irish citizen.
Okay.
People, especially if English is an additional language, are reading that and going, oh, well, and going
Not
away, even though it does bullet point underneath or a European citizen, but it doesn't say or. So right. I think there's a bit of confusion. I wondered if young people were picking up the same messaging or not. It's not something I've come across with young people, only adults. But I just noticed there's quite a strong push on the new entitlements for young people, but not so much on the new entitlements for different migration statuses.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wondered if there's anything sort of being flagged to address that. Sorry if it's a question that you can answer, but I just thought I'd ask because it's not.
No, absolutely. Ella, any comment on that or?
I think when you is it so that if you don't click British or Irish citizen, then you get other options?
I saw now there's a new click list when you go on, which there wasn't previously, saying are you this, but it's still, you know, in the page you just shared, the written information is still to vote you must be. And I just think the way it's phrased, it could provide a bit more clarity, like a big or something that highlights, it could easily be read as you must be a British citizen, and because that is the entitlement for UK elections as well, I think it sort of is causing a bit of confusion potentially. unless someone's got someone sitting with them who's going to go, no, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue. I think that the foreign nationals franchise in general is a bit trickier. I think it is lower profile than the franchise for young people, and as you say, because it's not the same for UK government elections, I think it's probably gone under the radar even more. But that's a good point about how it appears on the website. I think I'll have a think about that, because we can always try and get in touch with Cabinet Office to see if they can look at it. Yeah, because I think we from the work that we've done over the past few years, it is confusing, and we know people are confused by it. So yeah, there's definitely a bit more that I think needs to be done on that.
Thanks, Lucy. Any other comments or observations? No? Lou, in terms of the evaluation, you've probably sent me something and I've probably filed it somewhere neatly and what have you. Is there something we can share in the chat that people can do?
Of course, I'll just get the link now and I'll just pop it in the chat. It's easy, literally 4 questions, and most of them don't need written answers. So it's lovely and easy for people to complete. I'll just go off and get it for you now. Bear with me.
Thanks, Louise. Any other comments or anything else? No. I mean, it's just bearing in mind, you know, that the deadline is the 14th, so it's just over a fortnight away. It's the immediate of it really. And then obviously it's a month later, then more or less where they get to vote. So. There we are. Louise has put the evaluation in the chat. I'll just check the chat if there's anything else in terms of people want. Okay, I think Ella's answered most of this in the chat. I mean, I'd be interested to know from a training perspective if there are other types of webinars that would be useful for people. So if there are, if you can either tell me or put them in the chat, that'd be fab.
Sorry, do you mean webinars you can deliver, or other
webinars?
For
subjects you might find useful for the future.
Are we waiting for anything else, Mike? Are you on mute?
Sorry, yeah, done now. I'm just reading some of the chat. I get my Teams anyway. Cool.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks
Okay.
again.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care. Have a good day. See you soon. And then there were two.
And then there were two. That was good.
Good, yeah. Yeah,
All done.
all done. I just got to chase Gareth now.
Yes.